Right. Look, the principle of Hegesh Atzmoi, actually, we are first coming to this inyan, because we spoke about Chochmah and binah. The next koyach that surfaces after Chochmah and binah is daas. Daas is dinyan ha-hergesh. Effectively, the dinyan ha-daas that is a phenomenal inyan. Chochmah is where you see the truth because of its own truth. You don't need explanations. It is the truth is that truth per se is not possible to understand. There is no explanation for truth. Truth is something which comes directly from God. It represents a God. So to explain it is not possible. The only thing that we could say is that it supersedes any questions, to the extent that even the question where it comes from is also out of place. Where it comes from is a question that is appropriate in a situation where you're talking about something that could be and not be. But when you talk about the truth, which does not have these two situations, so where it comes from is not pertinent. It's not a valid question altogether. I'd like to give a point, a tangible point in this regard. The whole world, the scientific world, the smart Alex, think that we can understand the world from a worldly perspective. And they look at the entire daily and weekly and monthly cycle and the yearly cycle, and it is all dependent on the various worldly qualities like inertia or the magnetic fields or what do you call it? The pull of the earth, what's it called?
Gravity.
Gravity. This is what causing the entire continuous cycle. Thank you. And from that perspective, from their perspective, there's nothing that's real in itself. Therefore, it has to be created and it has to be maintained. The fact that it appears to us to be perfectly smooth and perfectly whole is because we do not discern the different stages. But in fact, there's a pull and there is a let go and there's a whole process involved. And the reason they're going to these pains to explain something which is not explainable is because they're taking for granted there's nothing that I cannot explain. That's an insult to the human intellect. There's nothing that's super intelligent. That is beyond the worldly principles. Therefore, if I cannot explain it, I have to explain it one way or another. And I have many ways of proving it, so to speak. We take a video camera, take a video, or it used to be the tape, the moving tape, movie. Moving tape, you could actually see individual pictures. And when you play them, they look perfectly smooth. You didn't see individual pictures. The reason was because it was replayed in such a speed that the eye didn't catch the individual pictures, and it went smoothly from one to the other. This was the key to the movie principle. On this basis, we're going to say that the whole world consists of these little bits, but you don't notice it because your eye and your seichel does not recognize it. So we're not going to go into those arguments because they really fall short of the entire human experience. I'm just explaining where those perceptions come from. So the world explains the daily cycle in multiple different ways. Comes the Rambam, and he writes a very simple thing. He says that Hashem is moving the cycle with his infinite koyach, and he's moving in this precise manner. This cycle represents a divine koyach. Like you explained the principle of a divine koyach. The divine is exactly the way he wants it, that's the way it happens. By his will. And we're not going to go a step further and say, what kind of koyach is this? This is divine. This is not worldly. He creates the world yesh me'ayin. The world is ayin relative to that. You're going to understand the yes that creates you when you're in a different realm completely. So understanding our seichel, we said seichel emanates on our understanding is an emanation from who we truly are. We cannot understand that which is beyond our being. So our being is also phenomenal because our being is created by the infinite being. Therefore we have an infinity quality in us, or a truth quality, because we have the spirit of the infinite. But then it comes down into our conscious thinking in seichel. The seichel is a derivative of that, the way it's mislabash in kelim. That is the finite element from that. This is not the reality itself. So in this seichel, we said that there are three different levels. There's a chochma that perceives the inyan the way it is higher than the world. It comes from the same. Then binah, as it defines it within the worldly context. Then there is daas. We haven't even gotten to daas over here, but this is binah ha-hergish. Daas is the pshat hazeh. So I'd like you to listen to this. As I said, seichel is a derivative of our reality, of our nefesh. Except we reduce the impact of the nefesh, that it should be seichel. That we know what we're talking about. But not that this explains the entire world. This is how our means of relating to it. But it all remains rooted in nefesh, which is higher than seichel. Higher than world. So here we have chochma, which is seeing the way the things are in the mind. Binah, the way we translate it in the world. Then there is daas. Daas is that after we understand it the way it is in the world, but we realize that this which we understand is actually a derivative, it's actually influenced by the reality of the nefesh. Then we correlate both things. We say, yeah, we are in the world, but that is also real. Because this reality is also a godly creation. That's daas.
I'm not getting this that daas is that what now? That you correlate what you know specifically with what is beyond?
If you understand.
Sorry, what's a good English word? Just to take some notes here. A good English word for daas, is there a word?
Verification. If you understand something, okay, I have a kind of a means of explaining something, but that's not the reality. Where does it come from? It comes from a real source. The real source is the nefesh itself. Except, in order for me to identify it, I had to reduce it and see it in a finite level, in a finite glasses, so to speak. Then I'm able to put it in perspective. But I'm not losing a sense of the reality what this is really about. Like I said, the cycle, the daily cycle, yes, there are all kinds of different explanations, but what is the real thing behind it? The godly will that it should be. This is why everything else is occurring. It's explaining only one thing, that God said there should be a daily cycle. We have means of taking bits of it and putting it into perspective. But that is not explained, that is not the reality, what makes it be.
So, is daas here the way that the specifics of binah revisit their source in chochma? They get re-verified?
Monochochma, to the nefesh. Daas is that which says, all that I understood is real, because it's real to my nefesh.
Oh, like a verification here, meaning a realignment with what's beyond.
With the nefesh, coming back to myself. Hergish atzmai.
Hergish atzmai is the verification element. It's the
on the seichel level, this will become called verification. Hergish atzmai is not the verification; is the substantia, is the cause for it all, the source of it all. But on the seichel level, it's called verification. Yeah, I understand it, but on what basis? What is the force behind it? Like I said, the cycle can explain the gravity and everything, whatever anything we want. But what is the bottom line? What is the reality that you're observing? A godly will. That's a daas. This is what makes it real. This is why you're 1,000% sure, not percent. There's no percentage. This is the reality in which you look. There's a daily cycle.
The daily cycle here is being used as
illustrating the godly will. The Rambam says there's only one thing. Yasha Motsu Risha Mamtsi Kol Nimtza V'hu, and he maneuvers the planets with his koyach agodel, unlimited bintidachas, with his unlimited koyach. In other words, the daily cycle is not, gravity means that I have the koyach to move it from here to here. That's not the way it happens. The koyach that moves it is the infinite koyach.
right, and the daas here would be the inner sense of the wholeness of that.
Oh, that's it. Daas is when it says this is real. All arguments fall away, and it's coming from that which is real. Bottom line, the daily cycle, the sun, the moon, and all. Yeah, there are all kinds of different ways of explaining various things. But what is the ultimate reality? The ultimate reality is that this is the godly will that it should be. So we are observing and experiencing, not only experience, but living with the godly design for the world.
We're getting to this because of a question from yesterday? Or because
Yeah, from a question yesterday, where does Hergesh Atzmi come from?
What's the basis for it? What is it?
Yeah, what is this? And the principle that Hergesh Atzmi actually surfaces, it's there before, but it surfaces after Chochmah and Binah. After Chochmah and Binah, and everything is okay. So, what is it all about?
Yeah. On the one hand, it sounds like a sort of a personal validation, but it's something deeper than.
It is a personal validation, but the personal presence is a godly gift.
That depth of personal where it meets with Atzmi. It's not what people usually call a personal preference.
That's right. No, it's not a preference. It's who I am.
It's much deeper. It's much deeper than your.
In real truth, this is the source of everything. Like I explain all the time. You design all the. What?
I don't want to interrupt, Esther.
He doesn't want to interrupt.
Okay. You design all kinds of different things. Tables and chairs and clothing, every kind of thing. Bottom line, after all is done and all is installed, you come home. Because it all emanates, it all is drawn and sourced in the real and nefesh.
Bottom line, you come home, meaning all that adds up to a soul quality of home.
To a vision of reality.
Okay. Right.
This is why daas comes after Chochmah Binah. Chochmah is super worldly. Binah is when he comes into the world and says, oh, now I see that this is really my understanding. This is really me.
Why this whole trip if it's all, this is really me? What are the first two stages adding if you're coming to this is really me anyway?
The first two stages reveal that this is really me.
You can't come to that directly.
No, not in. You could, but then it would be outside of the world. In the world, it has to go through these stages in order to then facilitate, bring it down to action, to practical things.
Is this what we're talking about, daas, the Nakudis Atamsas, which you learned before?
The Kudus Adamtis is still in the binah. Daas is beyond it. Because of the Kudus Atas, because of the Chochmah, the Kudus Atas, that's why daas surfaces and says, you know, the whole thing that you explained to me, I knew it all along.
And you can't go to I knew it all along directly. It has to be.
Then you're not in the world. You have to be able to function and recognize the world and put things in worldly modes. Like you're saying, a table is a table. There has to be a presence in the world.
You have to what? You have to have it in a worldly context. But it's not a worldly explanation. It's just that it has to fit.
Initially, it's a worldly explanation.
Initially, it starts out beyond world. What do you mean?
That's right. But then afterwards, you bring it down to the world. And in binah.
Okay.
But then once you come to that, you says, wait a minute. This whole thing is a completely different reality. The Chochmah makes sense, the binah makes sense because I make sense. Okay, the people are gathering.